Okay, so I am recording this right after my last reel, though I'm probably not going to post it just yet. Instead, I'm going to save it for later because of the fact that I want to give everybody a chance to see that one before I put this up, but I'm trying to take advantage of the fact that I'm feeling up to doing it right now. And because today is a chemo infusion day, I'm expecting over the next couple of days, I'm just going to feel rough. So we're getting this one out of the way right now. This post is going to be a little less focused on my journey and is instead going to be some of the perspective that I've gained throughout this journey itself. Obviously, I'm not going to sit here and pretend everything's good with our country, with everything that's going on in it. Things are bad. Things are very bad. This incoming administration is doing a lot of horrible things that hopefully are going to be stopped and people are going to fight. But there's no point in saying, oh, it's going to be okay. You know, one really hard thing that I learned last year, and I'm sure a lot of us learned, but started with kind of my new attitude of just not, I don't want to say not caring, but more in the sense of not worrying about being a proper citizen. I'm holding the phone up, so I can't make the air quotes. And instead just being somebody who speaks truth. But the first big nail in that coffin was the results of the election. I was really hoping that, as frustrated as I was with establishment leadership, that the guardrails of democracy would protect us. And to some extent, there still is a lot of opportunity for them to do so. But the thing that I've learned is that we can't depend on it. The leadership has failed us on both sides. There's obviously one side that's much worse than the other, but that doesn't exempt the other side from blame. And I'm not going to sit here and say vote third party, because they have their problems too. Like right now, we don't have a viable option. And for a while, it means we have to play in the system that we've got, and it's not great. But it's funny because looking at this whole system, and I know I'm probably opening myself up to a lot of attacks, a lot of frustration regarding people's political beliefs, and you are entitled to yours. Like, I'm not going to sit here and try to argue why one is better than the other. I have my personal opinions, but I'm going to try my best to keep those to myself outside of the stuff that I have said. But getting a positive cancer diagnosis has just made me realize how small some of these fringe thoughts are. I don't know. It's very strange seeing people who are so threatened by the way somebody else lives their life. Well, I said I wasn't going to make an opinion, but then I immediately make an opinion. So, well, okay. Nice going there, Matt. But but it doesn't make sense to me. Like, at this point, I am sitting here with an illness that, if left alone, it will kill me. And frankly, I don't care how people live their lives. The one thing that I just can't really stand is the hate. You know, I say this a lot, and it could just be that I'm very naive, but I just don't understand why we can't be pro-human. why we can't understand we have disagreements, and that's okay. Why can't we just understand that we all want to work towards something better? And yeah, again, that might be naive because I do understand there are bad people out there. There are people who selfishly want some pretty awful things, and I'm not trying to cover this, but I don't know, it just doesn't make sense to me anymore. I want to see everybody understand that it's not a matter of right versus left. It's a matter of top versus bottom. The system does not work for everyday people like us. And regardless of whether you are right, left, center, neither, that shouldn't affect you. Everybody should get their equal share. And right now they don't. And it's frustrating. Again, looking at my experiences with the medical system here, I am so lucky to have the support that I do. And it's frustrating to see some of that because I'll call it out. Somebody reached out to my family and tried to offer them a loan. And that pisses me off. That really pisses me off. I'm not talking about somebody tried to offer any sort of donation. That was meant in good faith. It's appreciated. It's not needed, but it is appreciated. But the fact that we have people who try to take advantage of less fortunate, again, just a part of life, but it never made sense to me. I used to work in a sales job and I was miserable in that job. I met some very good people. Like, there were definitely good parts to it, but I left eventually because I just felt like I was lying to people and it didn't sit well with me. And again, this is a perspective of somebody who's actually lived a pretty sheltered life. My parents worked hard so that my siblings and I could get the comfort that not a lot of people get to have. But I'm truly, I'm just baffled that some people can be so cruel. It makes no sense to me. But it's the world we live in, and all we can do right now is try to look for those sparks of hope. People who try to be leaders and do good in the face of adversity. And there may not look like there's opportunity now, but opportunity does come eventually. Again, one thing that I've really learned through this whole process is that I am strong. And I think it's important that all of us are telling ourselves just how strong we are. Again, a lot of us have lived comfortable lives where we haven't had to be pushed to something like this. But as I am constantly telling people whenever I am trying to give advice, the way I look at life is that we're all lumps of coal. And with a lump of coal, there's a diamond hidden inside. But in order to get to that diamond form, you have to go through the heat and the pressure. And it forms you into something unique and something beautiful. And there's so much good that can come from it. Adversity sucks. You know, life is full of good moments and not so good moments, and that's just how it works. But you got to have the bad to appreciate the good. And with this diagnosis, I've learned not to sweat the small stuff. You know, it's easy for me to be like, oh, something inconvenient happens and I go, oh, well, I already have cancer. So this is nothing. But my point being, we're taught to focus on such small, trivial things. And realistically, what we should be focusing on is how can we make life better? Not just for ourselves, but for others. I'm not religious, but I fully do believe that it's important to make life better for others where we can. I think it's a noble pursuit, and I want to see more of it in the world. And it's something that I'm hoping to eventually do more of myself. This has given me a lot of perspective where eventually I want to get into advocacy work of some kind. I don't know exactly what that looks like. I'm hoping it involves some kind of artistic element, since that's just something that I enjoy and I seem to be good at least in some people's opinions. Maybe not everybody, but again, at this point, the one big thing that cancer has taught me is who cares? People have opinions and they're like, well, you know the saying. They're like assholes and everybody has them, and most of them do not smell great. Anyway, never mind. But yeah, like my chemo brain has taken over and I've completely forgotten where I was going with that thought. But my point being, to put a bow on it and try not to make another 20-minute video here, is we can't give up. Things may look rough. Things may look grim. But regardless of that, we owe it to ourselves and to further generations to keep going. You know, the history books will tell one day of our deeds. Do we want them to say that we sat idly by and did nothing and allowed our lives to get worse? And think about this from a personal perspective as well. Your own personal history book, whether it's going to be written or not. The legacy you leave behind. Like I said, do you want to say that you sat around and did nothing and it didn't amount to much? Or do you want to actually make a difference? I have to focus on the latter. I feel like while I can see the impact that my life has had on other people, just from how they've responded to something like this when I made the announcement, I feel like my life hasn't come close to what I want it to be yet. And that doesn't mean I'm a failure. I've always been somebody who kind of comes into their own after other people, and that's just how it works. Unfortunately, our world is not tailored to the point where it helps people who are different. And that doesn't mean they're failures. It just means that they've got extra things they've got to figure out. But at the same time, figure it out they do. So this may have just been a stream of consciousness rambled. Hopefully I haven't said anything that gets anybody too offended here. Not my intention. Really, I just want to try to provide some hope in what is a very uncertain time. But we can do this. We can get through it. Again, if I can beat cancer, we can certainly get through what is a challenging and scary time. And we'll come out stronger for it. Of that, I have no doubt. It may not be the way that we are used to handling it. It may not be in a way where things are the same after, but change is good. It's scary and it's uncomfortable, but it is good. And we will come out stronger for this. Sending all my love to all of you. and all my support. And accepting all of yours with love. Matt.